Hi, I'm John Trishler from Specialty Performance Parts, and today we're going to show you how to locate, access, and set up your auxiliary switch wires on your 2024 Plus F-150 Raptor. We've got a video previously that we've done on the Gen 3 and the Gen 2 Raptor talking about auxiliary switch wires. And even though this is technically a Gen 3 still, they have made quite a few changes to the 2024 models, including changing around some of the switch wire colors. So we thought it would be a really good time to go over that with you and show you what the updated colors are for each switch, and to talk about how to install your accessories and your lighting options to those switches. So let's go ahead and get started, and we'll show you how it's done. All right, so I want to touch on something really quick and what sets Specialty Performance Parts apart from some of your other companies. As we get into the auxiliary switch wires, the traditional way that people would connect their light kits and wiring to their switch wires, so they'd take their bare switch wire here, they'd take their wire from their generic harness. Obviously the two aren't going to just go together like this. So you would get a butt connector to piece the two together. You crimp it on, it's a permanent fixture. You've got to put a piece of heat shrink on there to seal it down so that it's not going to touch or short out on the body. And then from there, you're stuck. I mean, there's no changing it, right? You're not going to unplug your light and go to a different switch, rearrange your wiring because you've got, more powerful lights and you need a bigger fuse for that light. You're not going to unplug it and connect two lights into one switch because you're locked in. It's permanent. So at Specialty Performance Parts, we developed the first ever plug-and-play wire harness system. This gives you the ability to connect your lighting and your wiring to your truck in much the same way that you would audio video equipment to your television or computer equipment, like with a USB cable or an HDMI cable. And so we're going to show you how that works on this switch wire installation video. All right, so this is one of our harnesses. And again, we've solved that problem with our patented harness system that's completely plug and play. The only thing that we can't control are the fact that Ford doesn't put connectors on their switch wires. But that's all right, because we're going to help you with that. We include connectors to add to your switch wires with each harness or with each kit. And we've got some simple instructions in another video we'll reference that you can follow for very detailed instructions on how to install all of those. But we're going to give you a basic layout of that right now. So on the switch wire end, you've got these single connectors. Your harness is going to come with a bag of connectors like this, and you're going to have your connectors and pins that you can add to your switch wires, and then you'll simply plug them in. If you ever want to rearrange your wiring from your lighting, you can move them to a different switch and a different switch and a different switch, and so on. We even have splitters so that you can combine two harnesses from two sets of lights, ditch lights and a light bar, a pair of fog lights, etc. You can combine your lights into one switch and so on, move them around, rearrange them. So it gives you the flexibility that you don't have from a permanent fixture like the traditional method. All right, so we're going to show you briefly how to add a set of connectors or pins to these switch wires, but we also have a very in-depth video that we'll share a link with that you can watch more in depth on adding the various types to your auxiliary wires and lighting that may not have connectors on them as well. In the 2021 Raptor, the tray came up to about this level right here, and it made it really difficult to access your auxiliary wires. They did do a better job at lowering that tray down, as you can see here, so you have more access to that area. And if you notice that we can see the switch wires right here, kind of just poking in underneath of there. Now, we don't know that every Raptor is going to be set up as easy to access those wires as this one. In the past, that's not always the case, and we've had to take the battery and the case out. And we're going to do that for this video. You probably won't have to, but in the event that you do, we want to show you how easy it is to do that. So removing the battery is simple. You're going to remove your bolt here that holds this strap to hold the battery down. Then you're going to loosen, but don't remove, the nut here on top that clamps this battery to the post, and you're going to loosen this one as well that holds that clamp to the post. This bolt uses a 13mm wrench, and our two bolts on top of our post use a 10mm socket. And now we've got these two handles we can flip to the side, and we'll be able to lift this battery straight up and out. So now that we've got our battery out, we can see where our bolts are. We've got one here, we've got one here, we've got one on the inner side, and then we've got one here on the front face. And these are all going to be also a 13mm socket. So we're going to remove these four. And then we have a little push pin zip tie here that's holding this harness in place. We'll pull that off as well so that we can remove this tray. And sometimes it's actually just easier to do this, to remove the battery and tray, just because everything's out of your way. And you can see how simple it is to do so. So we'll take our little trim removal tool, we'll lift up on this push pin, and we can move that out of the way. And then we'll begin taking our 4 bolts out. There is one more, it looks like, push pin that we've got to remove right here. We can bring our strap back in, move this out of the way, and our tray should lift easily out. That we can see the switch wires right here, kind of just poking in underneath of there. And if you'll notice, you've got red tape on here. There's our red tape. That should be our indicator that these are the correct wires that we want. And unlike the previous models where they've got them tucked in underneath of here, it looks like they don't have, usually they have the red tape around them and it's actually taped to that bundle and you really can't tell. They've got them loose. So people probably have complained that, they can't find them, can't get to them. They definitely have made them easier to get to. But if you'll notice, even still, with that tray in place, it really makes it hard to really connect anything to them. They're not that long. And so it's so much easier if you just take that battery and tray out because you're gonna have more access to be able to put your connectors and stuff on there. And if we reach back in here, we're gonna pull this whole harness out here. This is something you can't really see if the tray's in here, but now you can kind of see what's going on here. You'll notice these dead wires are right beside the powered wires, and you'll notice that there's a piece of white tape here on the dead ones. See that? And it's taped to this bundle with blue tape. So the red ones should be the ones you want. Again, if you get the wrong set, which is real easy to do as you can see, and you don't have any power to your switches, it's because you've got the wrong ones. So that's the first thing to check. So we're going to go ahead and pop the ends off of one of these and see if we've got power. And we're going to tell you which wires are which. So according to our findings, the green wire with the brown stripe should be our switch number 2, which is 15 amps. The yellow wire that's solid, no stripe, because remember, you've got a yellow here with an orange stripe. The yellow that's solid with no stripe should be our switch number 3, which is also 15 amps. Then brown should be our switch number 4, which is 10 amps. Blue with the orange stripe here, or purple, it's kind of a purplish blue, should be our switch number 5 with 5 amps. And last, we have yellow with an orange stripe, and that should be our switch number 6 that's also 5 amps. So what we're going to do, we need to cut this heat shrink seal that Ford's put on the end of this wire you need to cut that off. I always like to cut it just a little further back because you've got to strip the wire anyway, and the more you can save, the better. So we'll clip that right there. And then we're going to strip this back and strip that off of there. Just like this. And take off about 1/4 inch of that wire. Then we're going to be able to install our connectors onto that wire. All right, so now when you get your wires stripped off like this, you're either going to slide the pin and connector on manually like this, where we have a rubber plug here. We'll slide on the end, put our pin on here, and use our special weather pack crimping tool to crimp that on. Or we're going to use our pigtails or switch wire extensions just like this that are numbered, and we can slide those on, crimp those down, and seal this heat shrink around the wire. We're not going to show you that in this video because we don't want it to be too long, but we have a complete video showing you how to crimp the pins on your switch wires and your pigtails or extensions onto your switch wires. So we're going to give you a reference link to that video right here below, so that you can follow that to see how to crimp those onto your switch wires. All right, since we put our extensions on there that are numbered, we just have to shrink this heat seal down at the end. And one thing that we always try to tell people to be mindful of is that if you use a heat gun, it does create a lot of heat. If you aim at plastic or wiring or anything like that in here that you're maybe not meaning to aim at, you might melt it. So it's always a good idea to put something down underneath so that you're not shooting heat somewhere where it doesn't belong. For example, here's the window washer fluid. You definitely don't want to melt that bottle. So cover that up just so that heat can't get directly to it. And then we turn on our heat shrink gun here. We're just going to shrink that seal down. All right, so now we've got our connectors and extensions on all of our auxiliary switch wires, and that just leaves putting the battery back in and testing them. All right, so now we've got our battery back in. We did that in reverse. Ford, for the 24, has not put the switch wire colors in the manual like they used to in the past. So we're gonna go ahead and hook up a little test light so we can see if all of our switch wires are numbered correctly and have power. All right, here is switch number 2. And it looks like we've got power. And here's switch number 3. And it looks like we've got power there. And here is switch number 4. And it looks like we've got power to switch number 4. All right, and here we have switch number 5. And it looks like power to switch number 5. And here is our last switch number 6. And it looks like we do have power to switch number 6 also. So all of our switch wires are powered and numbered correctly based on the colors that we've researched here in the past for the 24 Raptor. So that completes our install of our auxiliary switch wire extensions on our 24 Plus Raptor. If you follow these instructions, that should be all you need to do. If you don't have power to your switch wires after that, there are a few troubleshooting steps that you can take. First, verify that you did grab the right set of wires. If you grabbed the white bundle, you're not gonna have power. It needs to be the red bundle. Occasionally, Ford will mislabel them, but it's rare. And you can go back and test the set of wires that have the white tape on them. If you do have the correct set of wires, make sure that your ignition's on, because your switch panel will not power up without the ignition on. And from there, you can check your fuses to make sure you haven't blown a fuse. Other than that, this should be pretty straightforward, and you should have everything you need to get started on the rest of your lights and accessory installs with your auxiliary switch wires. Thanks again for watching. Don't forget to rate, comment, and subscribe. Visit us at spvparts.com for all your options for your off-road trucks, your Raptors, your Broncos, etc. And follow some of the links that we're going to provide here for you to learn more about our harness system, kits and components that are available for your vehicle. I think you'll be thoroughly impressed at what a difference that we make for this industry for consumers to make things easier to install and more professional looking. So visit us again at spvparts.com for that, and watch these other videos to learn more about our system.